I'm Phil Tierney from Chester, Connecticut. You are listening to ICRV Radio, the stream feeding the River Valley.
Good afternoon. This is Gay Sherman Wentz, and we have another edition of Antiques Trail here on ICRV Radio. Last week, we had a husband and wife team from Key to the Past Antiques in East Haven. And Saturday, I went to their tag sale.
Fun.
Which was very exciting. I got to check out a new shop. I hadn't been there before. Awesome stuff. My son actually... Emil's son was out in one of the tents selling from his knife collection. So you can imagine Chauncey was pretty psyched about that. And he got a custom-made vintage knife from France, a butterfly knife, which he's already perfected opening and unopening, and it's flying around. I'm like, oh.
Uh-oh.
But he actually... knows how to use knives pretty safely. So, but it's pretty impressive what he's done so far with that treasure. And I had a good time looking around. And I actually ran into Crazy Susan was there, and
Yeah.
she hooked me up with another jewelry person who had some Christmas tree pins. So I was able to acquire a new Christmas tree pin while I was there. So
Nice.
it was a great visit. And today, this is kind of a theme now. We have another husband and wife team, and their shop is also a fairly new shop. They claim themselves to be newbies. We have Barbara and Claudio Riccitelli from Stony Creek Depot and in Branford, Connecticut. Really cool historic area, and they're new to the antiques business and another husband and wife team, so pretty cool. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here this afternoon.
And you are about on an anniversary of your business, right? About 3 years, you said?
We're coming up to our third summer, so hopefully that's a happy milestone in any kind of new business scenario. Seems like
Congratulations.
we've gotten hold in there. Given that Stony Creek, it's a pretty seasonal location. So we're very bustling in the summer. And then during the off season, it gives us time to kind of have fun, shop, regroup, retag, figure out what the trends might be for the summer.
Awesome. And you guys are, what I love about your business is you're a little bit different in that in addition to your antique store, you have 2 bed and breakfast suites up above on the second floor, right? And they're like antiques showroom for your stuff, which I think is really cool. I've never heard of anybody doing that before.
Well, Barbara's really taken it and grown it into a larger business than what it was actually supposed to be. So it started off as this little antique store, and now it's grown into the rentals, the VRBO rentals.
Yeah, it's such a great idea.
No,
and it's a nice historic area. I know near you guys are the Thimble Islands, the Trolley Trail. I know a little bit about where you are.
Yeah, it's a fun area in the summer, but I have to confess that area upstairs actually allows me even more overflow for inventory.
I know about that.
Yeah, you never can have enough display space, but happily it's kind of become circular because some of the guests have been interested in the items that we have up there.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if that resulted in any sales.
It does. It does.
Cool.
It's funny. It's circular. They'll come downstairs and take a look in the shop, or sometimes they see an item that I've got hanging on the wall. It was funny, a couple of weeks ago, somebody was looking for a washboard, and I have usually try to stock glass washboards, enamel, kind of interesting varieties. And I literally ran upstairs to the apartment, pulled it off the wall, and showed it to her in the shop. Sadly, she didn't buy it, but they'll get them next time. So I also do, to supplement, because it is so quiet down there in the wintertime, I sell online. So I have an online shop on Etsy as well.
Right. And your shop on Etsy is called Brightwood Lane?
Yes, that's I started the Etsy shop before we got the brick and mortar.
Okay.
So it all kind of cycles around and it's a little bit tricky keeping track of merchandise. Sometimes it's funny when something sells online and I have to try to ferret around in the store to make sure someone didn't walk in off the street and buy it. But we do a pretty good job keeping track of things.
Awesome. And how long have you been on Etsy?
I think I passed 4 years recently on Etsy.
Okay.
So Claudio and I were always prowling around, looking at antiques, going to flea markets and auction and furnishing our own home. And when I got to a surplus of things, I decided I better start selling it off. So I stuck my toe on the online pool, and I thought, if I sell 50 things the first year, I'd be pretty happy with that. And I ended up selling close to 500. So of course, then I had to feed the monster some more.
Yeah. Well, I can relate because that's kind of how I got into selling vintage and antique jewelry. It was to support my habit.
Sure.
I grew such a large collection that I was like, yeah, I should start selling some of this stuff. And I would sell some pieces so I could get another one. And, and I kind of have a revolving inventory too, because some things that I wear, then I'll rotate out into my inventory and vice versa.
I think it's common amongst people like us. We sort of fall in love with the last thing that was in your hand.
Yeah.
And sometimes after we've been picking, I go through what we bought and I bring it into my own house for a couple weeks and just kind of enjoy it. And then eventually I try to get it over to the shop so that we're not living in absolute clutter. I don't know if Claudio would agree that I'm any success at decluttering.
So it's really like a money-making storage unit.
That's what we like to think.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I went to your website at stonycreekdepot.com, and I was interested to know the history of the building that you guys renovated. It originally was a bar for quarry workers.
It was,
area?
And over the years, through the town of Brantford, they've kind of limited what you can or cannot do in that area. But we found a way to make it work as an antique store with 2 rentals above, and it took us just about a year to renovate the 2 apartments. The whole area was pretty much in shambles. There was one wall that was just completely rotted out in one of the apartments. So in a little bit at a time, we
That's a lot of work.
it. Yeah, no, it was. And it was nights and weekends because still trying to work. And
Yeah, that's impressive. You got it done within a year, though.
well, it was, Barb took on this one project, which I still shake my head about, where she took these old doors and just stripped them down to bare wood and took all the hardware, and it was copper, wasn't it? The hinges and the handles, and restored it back to its natural beauty. And she really did a nice job with it. And I still looked at her and I said, I'm not sure if it was worth the time that you
I'm
put
not
into
either. There may be another way that's easier, but you can't have fear when you're tackling things like that. And Claudio has a contracting background. He's actually a licensed home improvement contractor.
That helps a lot, doesn't it?
It does when you have time.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was trying to work his regular jobs, and we were squeezing the Stony Creek renovation. So we started from the top down so we could get the residence portion kind of buttoned down before we indulged our own desire on the first floor, the street level, to run an antique shop. But it was funny because when we had the doors open, it was hot in the middle of summer, and I was painting walls and cleaning up on the street level, and people kept strolling by, sticking their head in, asking if we could please be a pub or something.
Well, you never know. That might be your future.
Sure, we would make a little more money doing that. But there's limitations to the building, of course. Unlike the days when the quarry workers were stumbling in. Sometimes I'm sitting there and I think, if these walls could talk. I'm sure there were quite a few bar fights that would have been interesting.
I wish we had some of those stories, but I'm sure you guys have stories of your own from some of your pieces. We actually took a photo of one of your upcycled pieces. You're doing some garden art with vintage parts. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
It's now the photograph, for those of you that are listening that want to see it, it's actually on our Facebook thread. And speaking of which, if those of you listening have any questions, you'd like to participate in the program, by all means, send in a comment or a question on that thread on Facebook. And also you can send us questions at info@icrvradio.com.
Yeah, definitely. Please talk with us. Now, the piece that you brought with you, I can see the one part has a hole punch metal steamer, like you would steam artichokes with, and then there's a china plate, and on top of it, I'm not sure what that is.
It's actually a glass, semi-transparent, small, like a votive candle holder.
Okay.
And then we assemble them. So the largest item, usually I use china dishware, glassware, and I'm constantly prowling for flower-shaped dishes, bowls, castaway type pieces. And then we put them together. Glass, I liked using this metal vegetable strainer. I might use like a tart pit pan with a fluted
flutes,
edge.
yep.
Exactly. And it was funny this winter, poor Claudio had hip replacement surgery. And while he was recovering, of course, I couldn't just leave him alone. I've always got a honey-do list a mile long. So we decided to try and work on this upcycled garden art that I had seen the idea, but since he's so adept with tools, better than I am, we kind of experimented, broke a few in the process, a few glass shards in the kitchen sink. And so we assembled these garden art. So we put the plates together in such a way that when you hold them upright, they look like a flower. And it's funny, I put them all out along the street in the front of the shop because in March, the gray days, there's nothing blooming yet. And then, of course, we got that late snowstorm. I put them all out on their 1/2-inch galvanized metal poles all out in the beds across the front of the shop. And at this time of year, typically I'm only open on the weekends, generally like Saturday. I'm adding Sundays. By summer, I'll be open every day. But when my door opened on Saturday, people literally were like knocking on the door asking about them, which the neighbors, it's funny to actually have them come purchase. They're very accustomed to, having an antique shop or something in the area. But it was nice because it was a little shot of color out front. And I've had a lot of the local neighbors buy them for gifts, come by and add more to what they've collected.
It's been a good attraction for you.
It's been good. I think that's going to be our hot seller this summer. So I have to step up my production. Might be a few late nights because we do make them ourselves.
Yeah, that's always the other side of something taking off.
Yeah, I know.
And then you got to keep up with the demand.
But the thing is, we can't. I recently had someone who's been sells advertising for one of the antique maps and things, and he said it's so hard anymore. We have like generations of people complaining that they can't downsize. They don't know who to pass these items to. And the younger generation coming up, the millennials, they're not into acquiring huge amounts of things. So grandma's dishes, Aunt Mabel's silver.
Right.
It's hard. They don't necessarily want it. I do ship these things out online, but in terms of the local market for a brick and mortar antique store, I think the challenge is to find new ways to display it, to purpose things. So I spend a lot of time going on blogs, going on online social media to see what design trends are. I mean, brown furniture does not sell. You've got to paint it or tweak it or put chalkboard paint on.
Yeah, exactly. I use Pinterest a lot to kind of keep up on what people are interested in. And
I have been using that, of course, for myself, for my little ideas. And then I was on Facebook, but then, a 30-something told me, oh, we're all on Instagram. So I had to add that onto my list. And it's nice. It's interesting to try to see what's trending. Besides what's on the decorating shows on television. And that's more our perspective as antiquers, not so much collecting fine, heirloom antiques. I'm really from a home decor perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a few like new merchandise mixed in if it has that vintage aesthetic.
Right. And you have, I want to talk about a little bit about some of the inventory you have in the store. And we always like to know the story behind some of the items. Are there any particular items that you've had in the past or you have now that kind of have an interesting history or an interesting story behind it?
There's really just one for me. Actually, there's several for me, but did a lot of work at St. Mary's Church in New Haven on Hill House Avenue. And a particular priest that was there was moving out, and he had some furniture that he wanted to give to us as a thank you for doing so much work for them. And I asked Barb earlier what she would categorize it as, but it's more of an inlaid from the 60s, Barb, you want to say? Or
No, it's just more traditional type furniture. Probably not the kind that some of the younger buyers are installing in their home, but we're a little older than some of those buyers. So we look at it and just, it's part of our displays in the shop, a lot of those pieces, and we enjoy it. But one of the things I think is really clever that Claudio has done, because he's a contractor, he's very skilled when he's doing demo on job sites to save things that can be reused in creative ways. And the plaster lath.
exactly, we were doing a job in East Haven, and there was old plaster lath walls that just decided that I looked at them, and they had the beautiful patina with the white plaster slatted. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not just going to throw them in the dumpster. We're going to save it, and you never know. And then I think it was Barb that came up with the idea, or we were up in Maryland at Chartreuse, and we saw these stars that were made out of wood lath, and we started making stars and American flags out of them.
Shapes. Cool.
So I'd put them together, and Barb would paint them, but it was just, again, I mean, we still have, it's funny, we were talking earlier, and it's like, well, we've got 50 or 60 left. So what happens when they're gone? There's no more.
Yeah.
It's
But
unless you do another demo.
That's a cool way, though, of preserving the history of how houses used to be made. Actually, my house that was built in 1924 has that wood lath construction. Yeah.
And it's funny, I'm doing a house now on Winchester Avenue, New Haven, and there's these, well, I was just telling Barb on the way here, 18 to 24 inch pine flooring that was used as a subfloor, and then there was oak floor installed over it, and I very carefully pulled it apart, and I've got a little project in store for that. So there's like 6 8-foot planks that are anywhere between 12 to 18 to 24 inches. So
Nice.
You get it, you plane it, and you save it, and you never know what's going to happen with it.
We've been talking about doing a program called If These Walls Could Talk about that type of thing,
Yeah.
the historic buildings and so forth, because there is so much richness to the elements that go into them.
Well, the fun part of being a contractor is doing the older demos and pulling out the newspapers from 1920s and trying to read them and pulling out the cement in between the pages. And
I remember
seeing-
doing that as a child in
Exactly.
the house that I grew up with, was built in 1765, and I spent my childhood burning, 40 layers of wallpaper off the wall. But when we, did demo a couple of walls, it was interesting, the horsehair and the old newspapers, and you never knew what you were going to find in there.
Well, the funny part is that now as we reconstruct after our demo and we find all our interesting little treasures, we'll go back and find a newspaper that the homeowners would gladly give to us, and we'll put it back into the walls. So from this time era, obviously. So it's kind of fun to just give back. So who knows in 50, 60 years, somebody ripping it apart again.
That's cool.
We'll put names in newspapers and whatever else is laying around back into the walls. So
That's
obviously,
a good idea. I've never heard of anybody doing that contemporarily.
it's been a while now that we've been doing it. So.
That's cool. Are there any particular finds that you guys have had that have been, just a wow or?
I always like the story about the coffee pot, Barb.
Well, that's, we all dream of finding that needle in the haystack at the thrift store. So
Grail? Was it a holy grail for you?
I've had a few, and one of it was that kind of generic 60s looking, but I recognized the logo. It was like a coffee percolator, but it was stoked. It wasn't electric, enamelware.
Okay.
And it had that very distinct, it was avocado green.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay, that's that era.
Yeah, they had very distinctive colors.
Yeah, I said, but there was this white repetitive geometric pattern. And I said to myself, I think that's Catherine Holm, which is Swedish enamelware.
Yep.
And so I put it in my basket. I think I paid like $7 for it. But I said, I'll put it on Etsy. A lot of times I look at things and
I've seen those go for over $100.
yeah, well, not everything in the store is my taste, but that's the trick of finding, okay, somebody out there. And a typical kind of mid-century pieces like that, quite often I end up shipping to California and, where there's more call for mid-century design. So I put it online and I took the pictures and did the description, and I saw one online that was beautiful turquoise color. I thought, that one's got to sell before someone's going to take this avocado green one. And that was pretty fast. How, Claudio?
Like hours.
Like within
Hours?
a day.
Wow.
And I think
Under 24 hours it sold.
I think I sold it for like $275 or something.
Wow.
That was a good day.
I love those pie in the sky sales.
So, of course, every time I go back, I'm just expecting to find another little piece of Catherine Holm to jump into my basket. But that hasn't happened yet. But that's, I think, the fun of thrifting and just looking at this, those pieces that land on the shelf buried under a lot of other junk that isn't worth anything. But it's kind of fun, and I think people are having a renewed appreciation for American manufactured goods.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people do have an appreciation for, and I see that in the jewelry world too, that, things were made so much better in the past. Like the gold plating on jewelry. I can have a piece from the 50s or 60s and the gold plating still looks very new, whereas something that's plated today, it wears off within a couple months.
Yeah, the techniques are for expediency, I'm sure, not
they weren't meant to. A lot of the stuff today isn't meant to last, whereas back then, and some of it that they made, they didn't know it was going to last, but they made it to last, and they didn't. I think in some ways there was a different pride in manufacturing, particularly
the alloys. I'm sure were different with the metal, but even the old growth wood, like Claudio had mentioned, that's why just salvaging flooring and trim pieces for us, it's fun when we do. I mean, we have a little workshop on this side of our store, and sometimes I leave the door open. I have to shoo people away. It's like Oz, don't look behind the curtain. But we have projects, and I'll have little notes on things for Claudia. Please cut the legs off this, or please add legs, or
so you do a lot with furniture and other than architectural finds.
I love, I'd like to do more furniture out of the brick and mortar. Sometimes I think I'm drowning in smalls when I look around, and I really don't like to dust as much as is required with all of the little bits and bobs all over. But I know that people like it, and they come into a shop like ours. We're in an old building, and they want it to be packed with clutter from floor to ceiling.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to really group things together tighter. But I love working with the furniture. I like repainting or kind of looking for ways to kind of breathe some fresh life. And Claudio's a much better woodworker and tool handler than I am.
You guys make a good team then.
It's fun.
Yeah.
We definitely have our days.
We'll have to. Actually, I have Andrew Lowe from Trove of Old Saybrook coming next week, and he's one of the organizers of the Repurpose Happiness event, which it had its first year last September, and they're going to be doing it again. And it was so successful the first time, they decided to continue it. And it sounds like that would be a great venue for you guys.
Wait, it's funny. It kind of brings me back to when we were doing again, back to St. Mary's. We were doing sidewalks, and all the granite came from Canada, and all the skids. And it wasn't just this like either pine or bad oak. It was all apple wood. And I noticed
it was the shipping pallets. So
hundreds and hundreds of pallets of applewood. And Father asked me to get rid of it, and I was like, well, maybe I'll take it back. And
so much is being upcycled from pallets
beautiful.
Nowadays.
But this wood was gorgeous. It had so much character to it. Color, knots, wormholes. It was just gorgeous.
And your average pallet usually doesn't have that grade of wood on it.
Not even close. So we've got a little stash of that with right next to the lath.
One of my dreams is to have a porch swing made out of pallet wood, the good stuff.
And the cutoffs we even saved and burned in the fireplace, and it was so great that we really used up all of it instead of it just getting thrown in the dump. So that's, I think, one of the things that we enjoy most about what we do, and having the flexibility to be creative, but also try to salvage some of these things from a sad little death.
I'm definitely one of those people who would want to peek behind your Wizard of Oz curtain.
I'll let you
just,
come back.
Just come over and play. Sounds like a fun place, what you guys are doing.
The possibilities,
certainly a passion.
Creativity is endless.
Yeah. Well, it's never enough square footage. Like I said before, it seems like you can gobble up the square footage pretty quickly.
Yeah. And how many square feet do you guys have in your shop?
It's a little over 1,000 square feet in the shop.
Okay. And then is it about equal size upstairs?
Each floor is 1,000 feet. So the total building's about 3,000 square feet.
That's good size.
1,000 per floor.
Any quick words of wisdom for people considering doing the upcycling to keep in mind if they're embarking on that as a possible hobby or interest?
I think people in today's society, should develop hobbies and just try it. Don't be afraid. The resources online to learn things. Get on YouTube. Look up a video if you see something. You can do it. I've had people ask me, oh, aren't you afraid to give away your tips of how you're doing it? And I always say, no, I'll tell you. I'll show you. It's a lot of people just don't take that leap to actually doing whether it's textile arts or I don't know, like what we do with woodworking or objects. But there's so many resources available to us now through online that there's no excuse, I think.
And tap into that passion as well.
Well, I find it relaxing. There's days where I just want to put the phone down and paint and just, paint a piece of furniture. Doesn't take, a huge amount of skill for something simple.
Yeah. Well, it's satisfying to see when it's done too.
Oh, the before,
what you've turned it into. Yeah, before and after.
And I always say, if you don't like it, just start over again. It's fun.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. It's been a great show. Really wonderful to have you guys on. I can't wait to come over to Stony Creek Depot.
Please do.
They're located at 116 Thimble Islands Road in Branford, Connecticut. And what exit are you guys off of I-95?
56.
56.
The truck stop exit.
Great. Well, thank you again, and much luck to you and your passion.